Well, thank you very much for that. I hope everybody can hear me. I'd love to be able to see your faces if I could, but that's up to you entirely. So thank you very much for coming along and listening to all the problems that I was faced with and what I had to go through in order to find out what I was doing, basically. So I'm going to take it through, and what I'm going to do first of all is ask you all: what do you, if I said culture to you, what would you think about that? If I said culture, I'm just going to share a slide here as well. So what I'm sharing here is this is on the right there. That's myself and my wife. Now, my wife is not Indian; she's Chinese. That is my daughter there, who is had an Indian wedding there a little while ago, and her husband, strapping young man, just there. And that is one type of culture. Now, I'm not talking about that type of culture. I'm talking about team culture, actually organizational culture. Organizational culture is much, much more difficult. And what we're going to take a look at today is what happened and how we go about that. Now, the difference between a private sector and a government sector, I'm actually coming to you from Wellington, New Zealand. And in Wellington, New Zealand, that building on the right there is our government offices. It's called the Beehive for reasonably obvious reasons. It looks like one. But what we're looking at is these differences. Now, when you go through and take a look at the differences between government and private, in the private industry, it's reasonably easy to be the person who comes in and assists. And I'm not talking about command and control, I'm talking about culture. But within a private industry, you can go in and ask the team to do something with a reasonable expectation that the team would at least give it a try or even feed back to you. In a government organization here, the team, if you ask the team to do something, that would be one of the reasons why they may not give it a try, is because they've been asked to do it. But if they have the enthusiasm to do something, and if they think it's their idea, then nothing's going to stop them. So it's a different way of looking at it, if you like. In a private organization, teams are more open to new ideas. They can understand things and they can look it through and work it through. And again, I say it's not command and control. You're not going through and saying, do this, do that. You're talking to teams and saying, how about we give this a try? How about we give that a try? Have you ever done this? Has anybody else had any suggestions? It's not command and control, it's culture is what I'm talking about. So let's start with, first of all, I want to introduce somebody to you, and that's this guy here called Chris Buxton. Now, Chris Buxton is the CIO, actually the CDO, Chief Digital Officer for Stats NZ. Now, when I was there, I think he's still there, and he's changed the IT department to digital business system. He went in there with a digital outlook. He didn't want to necessarily be the IT, because IT assumes it's all about hardware. And he wanted to change that. No, it's all about business. It's all about digital, all that sort of thing. So he changed that was very, very interesting what he did there. He changed his title from CIO to CDO. Now, back in those days, CDO was considered not as powerful as CIO. So that change could have gone the wrong way. It turned out to be a very good way to go. But he removed that hierarchy that was in there and at the time, and the old school way of looking at things, the old government organization way of looking at things. He changed that hierarchy, and he started that awareness about Agile and DevOps. But then something happened. As you've been told there, at a 7.8 earthquake around midnight happened in New Zealand. Now that was fantastic. I don't know if you can see it on here, but there's a couple of people standing up here. That's actual people's height. You can see on that picture there. That crack went for over 100 miles. New Zealand stood, parts of New Zealand stood, 24 feet higher, walked about 15 feet further north. So it was quite dramatic. Places that were under sea were suddenly now part of New Zealand. New Zealand changed its shape in that particular point. What happened was that we get earthquakes here reasonably often. It's nothing to write home about. It's fairly straightforward. We get it all the time. What happened at midnight was my wife and I were sitting up in bed, reading and chatting, and then suddenly this earthquake started. We looked at each other and said, "Oh, there's an earthquake. Did you feel that?" Next thing you know is, oh, it's quite a strong one. And from that point onwards, all we could do was hang on to the side of the bed. Nothing more we could do. We couldn't stand up. We couldn't do anything. And that's what's happened. And that was hundreds of miles away from the epicenter. So it was quite dramatic. Let's put it this way. We had, in the place we were living in at that stage, we had a swimming pool. The water in the swimming pool splashed onto the side of the house. It was that dramatic. So, so quite something. Okay. Now, Statistics House. Statistics House is where the Department of Statistics is, or Statistics New Zealand as they're called. And they lost that 90% of IT capability overnight. Now, when you think about it, just how many organizations would survive that? 90%, I would suggest possibly even more. Nobody could get back into that building. That building was pretty much flattened. Nobody was allowed to even walk through. It's but what happened was that entire organization just dropped everything and got things done. So within 5 days, the core productivity was recreated. Within 12 weeks, we had full restoration of everything. Even though we couldn't get to the servers, even though we couldn't get to, you couldn't even walk in and get the jacket you left over the back of your chair. There was nothing. In the end, that entire building was eaten up by one of these machines that just simply gobbled things up and chucked them out as rubbish. So it was quite a scary situation to be in. But at what cost? People just did everything necessary. What did this create? And that's what we're getting into. So here's taking a look at this. This is what happened to Statistics House. Now, if you take a look on the left here, it's a little bit skewed to the side, but they had one of these videos underneath one of these helicopter little thingies that they flew through. And that on the left is the left of that green one there is the wall, and on the right of that green one there, that's the story above. Is the floor from the story above. Just fell through. So if you take a look at what's happening there, I think that's that area on the right hand side there. That's up to the side. That's part of a wall or part of a floor coming down from above again, and it was just a wreck. It was too unstable to even go in and get your telephone you left on the desk. Nothing. So not your computers. Nothing. There were a number of projects that they was just moving towards Agile at that stage. So there was a number of project rooms with sticky notes everywhere, and they had to start again because they hadn't actually put those sticky notes into anything that they could keep. It was all there. So they were just wiped out. So what happened at that particular point? That's 300 kilometers away, by the way. That's about, what's that? Well, over a couple of 100 miles, perhaps. So actually, that was just one house. Wellington Central had many like that. That's just one department.